Hey everybody, this is Tim Charron, and welcome to my brand new podcast called The Charron Zone. Blah, 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 blah. Download your free guide to booking gigs at howtobookgigs.com. Welcome to The Charron Zone. I am here with my good friend Chris Winward. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Doing well.
Excellent.
It's Florida weather down here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, two Florida boys now. So we met in Nashville. Did we meet in Nashville?
We did.
Yes, we met in Nashville.
You guys were on the boat, yeah.
Yep. And so you're kind of doing what I'm doing, kind of based in Florida, but going back and forth to Nashville and doing shows and stuff. Uh-huh. Cool. Well, I want to let everybody know what we're gonna go over, and then we'll dive into it. So we're going to talk about having different streams of income and the difference between being a full-time musician and being a musician where you have another stream of income, so that the differences and the pros and cons of those two things. We're definitely going to talk about hiring and firing musicians and everything that goes along with that fun stuff. And also we'll talk about how to book gigs. Cool?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Chris, tell everybody what it is you do, what you've been up to for the past couple of years, and all about your music career.
Sure. So I moved to Nashville 14 years ago, and I started playing music when I was in college in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And while I was there was that whole red dirt thing happening where it was like Stony LaRue, Cross Canadian Ragweed. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a hotbed for bands that wanted to get out and do it without a record label, without any other help, really just bootstrapping it. And I sort of came to Nashville with that mindset. It made sense to me. I was always a type A personality, so that made more sense to me than just hanging around Nashville and hoping that I get a publishing deal and a record deal, and then
hoping you get discovered.
Right. There's a lot of people that it works for. There's also a lot that it doesn't. And for me, it just made sense to get on the road and do it. So, so I did that. I did the college circuit around the Southeast in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. I started booking through some agencies there that really focused on the college market there.
Did you ever showcase for NACA or APCA?
I never did.
Oh, wow.
No.
Oh, great.
So I was staying busy doing that. And it was, again, made sense to me because that was an environment where people wanted to find music that they liked and felt like they could sort of grab a piece of and be a part of in pushing those bands to do bigger things. And through that, I got to open up for Eric Church. I got to other big stuff that sort of branched off of that. So I did that for a long time. And I started coming to Nashville, to Florida. My wife got a job down here. At that time, I was playing more shows in Florida than any other state. So I said, let's do it. So I've been going back and forth, and still in Nashville a lot. My other business is in Nashville, so I'm tied there with that as well. But I got a fishing habit, so I...
I was going to say, you're a fellow pirate like myself, so, it's like, man, once it's in your blood, once the ocean, and for me, just the ocean, the beach, I have a hard time living without it.
I'm the same way. I ride my bike to the beach every morning that I'm here. I fish twice today. But it's a whole different lifestyle than than people I know that are doing this in Kentucky, and Alabama. It just kind of fits what I've always wanted to do. So it's a good deal down here.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So let's go right into it. Let's talk about, we were talking, pre-show about having different streams of income and the difference between basically making a living doing music and doing music full time, so to speak, but not having it your sole source of income. So if you just speak to, at least your experience with that, because, and I can speak to my experience with both sides of that.
Mm-hmm. So I've done both. Life is a whole lot more stressful when all you're relying on is music. You strain a vocal cord, and you spend every moment that you're not singing, not talking. Mm-hmm. I've certainly gone through that, and those injuries take months to heal. That definitely, I see people do both. Mm-hmm. I know that for me and my personality and my, I'm booking better shows, and I feel like I'm writing better songs, and I'm doing more now with two sources of income than I ever did on my own.
Yeah.
It gives you a budget to record if you want to. Mm-hmm. It gives you a chance to turn down the gigs that you don't want to do.
Which is very important.
And there's there's a psychological aspect of doing shows that you don't want to do, but there's also, you beat your body up.
Yeah.
And there's bands that get out and do this where they do 5-week runs, and they play 5 nights in this bar and then 5 nights in this bar, and you never hear about those bands for a reason. Because they're playing gigs that don't really generate a real fan base.
They don't move the needle, so to speak.
They don't. Yeah. They just kind of do it until they get tired of it, or too old to do it, or get arthritic, and then they sort of go away.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always recommend to people when they say, I just moved to Nashville, what should I do? Get a steady job.
Yeah.
In my other company in Nashville, my drummer in my band is also my assistant. So he's also in school at Belmont. I think it's a good gig for him. It's certainly a good gig for us, although I have to sub him out if I need him in Nashville during the week.
Yeah.
I've seen, so many guys in Nashville just really be good versions of themselves, and I think a lot of it has to do with, they're always broke. They're always stressed about being broke. They can never buy new gear. They can never take the gigs that might pay a little bit less, but might lead to something that, is more of a career and not just a gig.
Well, that's a great point also for artists, If you have your schedule, it's a balancing act, and it really depends on where you are in your career. I started out when I started to, decided to be professional. That's how I made a living, playing solo acoustic gigs, 5, 6, 7 days a week. I did that for a few years, and it was great training, but after a while, it just got to be unsustainable. It started sucking the joy of music out of me. And what I was going to say is, one thing is, as an artist, I think it's really important to not overcommit yourself, so that you can have space to take on, maybe things that don't pay as much, but are a bigger springboard to get to the next level. And you brought up a really good point before that I didn't think of, is I find, I don't know about you, but I find the songwriting process, when I'm touring, I can't write anything. I need space in my life to let my mind not be racing a million miles an hour in order for me to write. That's just me, but so I find when I'm gigging less, then I can write more.
You need downtime.
Yeah.
You definitely need downtime. And if you're out playing 4-hour gigs, you're tired. So you got to get the right amount of sleep. And then, often I found myself that, with these, with vocal stuff, I couldn't really strain my vocal cords by songwriting, because that is a intensive process. You're writing, was even just going through different ideas. So you sing for 3 hours writing a song, and then you go play your gig that night singing for 4 hours. The human body is just not made to sing that much.
Right. Burnout is real. Whether burnout is real, whether it's like physically and mentally just being burned out of doing that same thing for,
Sure.
I mean, like we know people that do it for years and years on end. But yeah, also I had tons of vocal problems, especially when I was doing all of those solo acoustic shows. It was just way too much. And then I discovered, here's a tip if anybody doesn't do this, but if you have vocal issues, try tuning down half step. That changed my life for the better, and I still do that. And a lot of people are always like, "Why did you gum when you're performing?" And that's another thing that I started to do to keep my vocal cords moist, as weird as it sounds, and it's helped tremendously. So if you come to a show, you're just going to have to deal with me chewing gum.
Hope you brought enough for everybody.
Of course.
So, there's really what made the difference for me in singing and being able to sing as much as I wanted to. I went to a bunch of vocal coaches because, there are guys in Nashville who are singers, mm-hmm. and then there are guys who aren't. And I never saw a direct correlation between success and ability to sing. But I'm sure probably everybody has heard that advice, like, know what you're good at,
yeah,
and focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a great singer, I make a living doing it. But I would probably never sing in an opera, right? So
yeah, me neither.
Worked on that for years, being in Nashville, recording technique, which is a whole different ballgame than singing live. And after probably 4 vocal coaches and spending a bunch of money on that, I went to this one vocal coach, and she was probably 90. She was ancient. And, she said, well, take a breath like you're about to sing, right? So I did, and she put her hand on my back, and she said, this is where you should feel it get tight if you're singing correctly. It had to do with inhaling so that your costal muscles expand to give you the support to hit those notes. So no wonder I wasn't doing it correctly. I was straining my vocal cords. It was always an issue, especially when I was doing 5 gigs a week. And that one lesson, changed everything for me.
Wow.
I think it's very important just what your weaknesses are, what your limitations are, and say, if there's a way that I can fix this, because there's so many, this business, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in it. Mm-hmm. And if you figure out how to work some of those to your advantage, mm-hmm. There's nothing getting past great talent, but, there are ways that, the top guys in the business use, certain tools to make their job easier.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, the greatest musicians are not the most successful. The greatest mm-hmm. singers are not the most successful. And you nailed it right on the head. It's, everybody's really great at a few things, or they have a natural inclination to mm-hmm. be great at a few things. So I think you're right. Figure out what you're good at and become great at that, and let that be your calling card. I mean, there's many examples. Taylor Swift is notoriously not the best singer, but she's a great songwriter, an amazing songwriter. She's turned herself into and studied how to be a really great performer, which is that's another feather in her cap. Mm-hmm. So those
she
two
also
things.
Outworked a lot of people in the business, yeah. And she learned how to play like 15 instruments, and that's something that people really didn't give her credit for at first. But it was good to see her develop into that, to where people started paying attention.
Yeah, and you take your strengths and then you work your ass off. Focusing on your strengths, and that's a great combination, instead of maybe obsessing over your weaknesses.
you know?
Sure.
Because, you know, everybody's got them, you know, if you're, well, there you go, like Taylor Swift, you know, maybe not the greatest singer, but she has all these other strengths that are just monstrous, and they you know, they make her a superstar.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about employee. I've got a lot to say about that.
All right, I'm gonna lean back and get ready for this, because this is one of my favorite topics too.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Okay. So, you know, I heard somebody say this once. I'm sure you have too, that you're kind of a combination of, you know, the 5 closest people to you, and the company you keep is something that you should really place a high value on, especially in this business, you know. And out touring, you know, when I first started doing that, you know, I would take out whoever would go with me, again, because I was just relying on music. Pay the good guys more, so I had to take out whoever was available.
And this is all, of course, you know, prefacing this with, you and I hire pro guys. You know, I don't always use the same lineup. You know, in different places I use different lineups. But, you know, we're not talking about like having a band of buddies from high school that it's a democracy. It's, you know, you're the...
I think y'all live together.
yeah. You know, you're the boss. You're the artist. You're the one who gets the gigs. You drive the whole train. So I'm sorry to interrupt. But go ahead.
So you take all the risk, and that's something that, you know, as a young artist, you know, you find a lot of ways to justify somebody else's terrible behavior, whether it be low self-esteem. I can't get anybody better. You know. It was something that I did. Maybe I could have done a better job. Maybe I didn't tell them what the rules were. First of all, you have to, in any business relationship, you know, where you're paying somebody to do a service, you have to say, you know, this is what I expect from you. This is what I'll pay you. And, you know, if I would like to keep working with you in the future, but this is what I need from you. If you do a good job with that, then, you know, I'll give you as much work as you want.
Yeah. I just want to jump in real quick. I'm really glad that you're talking about this, because I always say about you know, the podcast and all the stuff that I'm doing. You know, I wish that I had something like this, you know, 10 years ago when I was first starting to take all this seriously, because I went through this exact same thing, and just to hear you, just the words that you're using describing this. It brings me back to all those times and literally the years that I went through of thinking, like, is there something wrong with me that I want to be able to tell the people what to do, like not tell them what to do, but tell them the standards of what I want. And I went through the same thing, so I'm really glad you're talking about it, because I went through years of thinking it's me. Like, I'm just a raving asshole. I just want everything the way I want it because, you know, of my enormous ego, which is absolutely true. No, but
I guess we're in the right business for that.
What's that?
I guess we're in the right business for that.
Yeah. No, but you know, so yes, please go on. But I just wanted to tell you that this is really valuable, and I really hope that somebody's listening or watching that's going through this and is like, shit, yes, this is, you know, it's not me. Like, I have a band, a product, a business that I want it to be the way that I, you know, have the certain standards, and I want people to conduct themselves and blah, 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 and it reflects on me. I want them to conduct themselves a certain way, and it's not because I'm crazy, it's because I want things, you know, I want to represent my business in the best possible light. So
I'll give you an example of when I learned a really valuable lesson with that. So I started playing, and by the way, and I love playing weddings. I always have. You know, so it's funny. Some people in the business, they don't view that as a real gig. I'm like, look, I developed better relationships playing high-end weddings and done radio stuff and gotten songs cut. Like, I've done all this stuff from playing awesome weddings. Not only that, I did one in Canada. We did one in. I've been able to travel to really awesome places and get to meet great people doing that. But so we started doing shows maybe 10 years ago with an event coordinator in Pensacola that was doing, over the top stuff. Where these people would spend, insane amounts of money on their weddings, and we were the go-to band for that. And that's what really started the word of mouth that made a lot of shows in Florida possible for me. It all kind of branched from that, but that relationship was very valuable because, I'd get a call or text, hey, I got another one for you. They saw you play at this last one. They want you guys. But one time I brought down a band that was a slam band, and the drummer had an attitude. And I think he backtalked to somebody that maybe was saying something in passing that wasn't, anyway, typical stuff of those types of guys that, anyway, she never called us again.
Yep.
And, so that was, if you're looking at an extra, however many thousands of dollars that you would have made every year for the next however long you wanted to, that one guy was enough to ruin all of that. And looking back on that, I can say it was my fault for even bringing him in that situation.
Well, there you go.
And so,
way to be accountable.
So when I say that you need to be very careful as to who you're trusting with your reputation and who's representing you, like if there's one takeaway from this, that's it for me, because because these guys just come and go, and they don't care if you never get booked with those people again, because they just move on to the next gig, and they'll go to their grave saying it wasn't their fault.
Yeah, they move on and ruin the next gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say, it's my name on the banner.
Sure.
It's not their name. They don't care.
And you'll find, and I found after a few of those lessons, that the right group of guys, not necessarily the insane monster players you can possibly get, because people really don't know the difference.
Right.
People think musicians are better if a band sounds tighter than if you have a bunch of guys that all subbed out for these huge bands that only play together once in a while. I don't think they're better than the gig that you're on. So you're pulling a lot of strings, being up there on stage, knowing that this stuff is happening around you in those situations, and hoping that nobody notices, and I've been in so many situations like that where looking back on it, it was like, well, duh, just don't ever hire people like that again. Hire people who are maybe not as seasoned, but who are malleable, and who you can say without them getting offended, this is what I need from you. This is what I need you to wear. Not that I need everybody to be matching my band, but
right.
If you're playing somebody's wedding, don't show up with holes in them. Be respectful.
Yeah.
Don't cuss. Don't smoke on stage. Don't smoke next to stage. Just basic, remember people's names. Try to make an effort to do that. It's the same as any other business.
Yep.
And musicians, creatives, really don't place a value on it as much as I think they should. I'm going off my soapbox here, but
well, I've had a rule for years that I ask the guys. I tell the guys, but I ask them, like, hey guys, I'd rather not anybody drink on stage before the show, during the show. If you're going to drink, I prefer that you leave the venue.
Sure.
And it works for me. I unless it's really obvious that somebody comes up and gives me a beer. Like one time it happened at a festival, so I drank a little bit of it. So I didn't want to be rude to the to the customers, but I never drink Never. No, I don't do anything. Because I really nobody's going to care about Chris Winward's music business like Chris Winward.
Sure.
And the same goes for all of us. And I just take it so seriously that that's what I ask people. And thank God now I've weeded through so many people. And I'm just trying to be nice, but I've weeded through so many people.
Yep.
And finally, I have a lot of guys that just get it, and they're totally cool. They're totally cool with it. They have no problem. A lot of them now will just ask me how should we dress for this show?
Sure.
And it's definitely like a process of elimination and firing people left and right, and it takes a long time unless you I mean, I don't know if it's getting lucky, but unless you're really, really, really choosy about the people that you use. And I haven't always been in a position where I could be choosy. So I've had to just bring people in. They drive me insane. And the worst thing in the world is being, playing an important show, whether it's whatever. If it's important to you as an artist, if it's a friggin' bar, but it's important to you, if it's a restaurant, but it's important to you, if it's a wedding, if it's an arena, then you're on stage and you're worrying about somebody else or what they're going to do and say off stage. That is a horrible situation to be in.
Sure, and the audience picks up on it.
Yeah,
when I was doing it, when I started, people come up to me and they, what's wrong with this musician? Well, he looks like he's mad. Well, he probably is, and nothing did with me, but I would say, so there's certain things that I do that not other artists do. I carry more lighting. I think that bands that have 10 different colors of extension cords on stage looks like a garage sale, so.
Hey, what was that lighting piece that you were telling me about? Something about the drums?
Yeah. With the sound activated LED stuff.
You were saying if you just get a couple of I don't know if you said strip lights or something for the drums. What was that? Because I want to write it down.
They are Chauvet, I believe. But the lighting is. I mean, all the gear's getting awesome now. To where I probably carry 30 the amount of gear that I used to, and it looks way bigger on stage. But there's a lot of guys out there just say, well, it's not about the lighting, it's not about the it's about the music. Well, it's not. It's show, and that this was it's not always about the music.
No.
But I have 2 LED strips that I put behind the drum set. They're sound activated. They sync up with each other. I have some other LED pars that also do that. But you see these bands that go out and play, and they're a great band, but they have no lighting or one crappy light, and nobody's paying attention to them. We're like, remember Deadliest Catch, where they put flashing lights in the crab traps and it brings them all in?
Oh, yeah, we do that in Almirada.
I used to be a scientist, so it all makes perfect sense to me, because I see that if you have the right lighting, and it doesn't have to be expensive. All the gear is so cheap right now. If you just put some effort into making your stage look like it should command your attention, it makes your job way easier.
Yeah.
And maybe a third of the bands out there actually get that. So there's times where we'll go out and somebody else will be doing production. There'll be a crowd of 1,000, 2,000 people. And I'll still, if I feel like there's not enough lighting on stage, I'll set up my own lighting. And generally they're okay with it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that long. That's sort of stuff that I think if you want to compete and command a higher price and have you be worth more than all these other bar bands, that's the cheapest investment you can make.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's a term that people throw around, is investment. And I don't know if a lot of people, let alone musicians,
understand the idea of an investment, especially in the music business at this, at the level that you're talking about. Exactly what you just said. If you invest in your stage, see, I've always said this, you're only as big as the stage that you're on, and that's exactly what you're saying, because that's people's perception. The bigger stage you're on, the more elaborate the stage looks, the bigger your act looks. It's just simple. So to put it simply, if you go out and you invest in yourself and your business, and you buy lights, maybe banners, that's exactly why I got, all these different stage banners and stuff. I use the fog machines, all that stuff, and they're fun for us. You can then expect to be able to charge more money. That's an investment. It's a return on your investment. It's going to take a little while to recoup your investment, but it's a freaking investment. People, stop being cheap.
Yeah, and if you have to get a second job to buy that stuff,
yeah,
spend some of the time where you would be out doing something else, and if you have to get a side gig to do it, it's worth it, and it pays for itself in 3 or 4 shows.
Absolutely. That's what I used to do is I would play a couple of solo acoustic gigs and be able to buy a wireless microphone, be able to buy the banners that are maybe $800, but you buy lighting, and you can use that lighting for, I don't know, a few years at least. And every single place that you go, you're just going to have that much of a bigger image, and then it's more value. You're bringing more value to whoever's hiring you, so you can charge more money. Great point. Very simple point, and people should definitely.
Well, and I think when you're in those situations where you're playing a big show, like there's been a lot of shows where I'm like, I'm playing for 1,000, even 5,000 people, where it's like, if I spent $150 for a videographer to come out here and capture this,
yeah,
why didn't I do that? I'm sitting here on stage playing this huge stage, and it's a big crowd, and
I started doing that last, I think maybe 2 summers ago. So I think it's been 2 or 3 summers that my bass player, one of my bass players in New England, is a videographer, and so if he's playing the show, I'll hire him to have his wife come and shoot, and he edits, and it's like, I think it's $150 to have him come out and shoot, and you shoot, like, if you're doing however many big shows that you're doing, if you shoot like 3 of those shows, then you have professional content that you can mix up and splice into all different things that you can use it for the next few years. And that's a great point, because this is exactly what I do. Is I had him record, I think, only two shows, and on one of the shows we were doing 2 sets, so it looked like 3 shows. Big, huge stages. So I had him shoot those 2 shows. I had him paid him like $100 or $200 to put together a promo video, just some real quick clips, and he made it look very professional with the intro and the outro, and that's what I use to book my gigs now, and I charge more and more and more money, and I'm getting more and more money.
Yeah,
it's a perfect example of an investment.
It's something that if somebody can't hire a videographer, there's GoPros are amazing. Even footage that you can crowdsource. You can get people in your crowd to say, hey, I'm going to be playing here. If you get anything great, can you send it to me? And I've done that before. I've gotten mileage out of that. I used to give a GoPro out to people in the audience, and always got them back, but it was always questioned.
Oh, yeah. No, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. That is a great idea. What I do is, like, we have this all planned out. I have Nicole will come to most of the shows, and she'll have. Depends. We have the phone. We have a camera, video camera, and we have 2 GoPros. Sometimes I'll have the GoPro on a stick, and I'll have that on stage. And actually, we just opened for Parmalee like 5-6 weeks ago, and it was a monster show. So I had the GoPro on the stage and my phone. And I went to fire up the GoPro because we had everybody put their lights up on their phones. So it was like a couple thousand people, and everybody had their lights up. It was an unbelievable moment. Well, I couldn't get the GoPro in the moment. I just couldn't.
You can't stop the show in order to.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm like, forget it. So I just grabbed my phone and literally did the cheesy ass singing and videoing the crowd. And it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. So there's really no excuse. I mean, that's a great idea to ask somebody in the crowd or somebody like a fan, that you know, so they won't steal your shit. And then always, like a significant other or something is always great. Have them record. And, but, every once in a while, if you have a really great show, hire a videographer, man. It's going to pay off in the long run.
Well, and there's another thing that you're talking about with your banner, and when people look at your stage, they know who's on stage singing. Yeah. Often, I see bands that there's nothing on stage that people can walk away and say, oh, that was this person, or they say, man, that band was awesome, but the next day they don't remember. So like I've seen bands with like arm stamps. That they can, people wake up the next day and they say, oh cool, that was this band.
Oh yeah.
We've given out we've given out a lot. So we made beer pong balls with our logo on them.
That's great for the college market.
In the college market, you can get customized beach balls made up. It's all that stuff pays off. And I think last run of stickers we had made were less than 2 cents each.
Oh wow!
So there's no reason why people should be. People should leave your show and have no question of who just played.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially in the age of diminished attention spans, which I'm guilty of it too. And yeah, I mean, just think of it from your own perspective, or people listening or watching. Think of it from your perspective. If you are at a show and you go to see, whoever you see, Luke Bryan, and there's an opening band, and you think they're great. Oh, they're amazing. But number one, they don't say their name, even if they have banners. You should. I believe, because I have an enormous ego, I'm constantly saying my name. But, you want people to hear your name over and over, and definitely you want them to leave that show. That's a great opportunity that you might be missing if they don't have something to remember your name by.
Sure.
And everybody's going to be, Googling and looking up your shit on YouTube and stuff, like, during the show. But if they don't have your name and they're a mile away from the stage, they have nothing to look up.
And you can gauge how well you're doing with that by your social media interaction the day after a big show. And it should be a constant evolving process to hone in on what is most effective.
Yeah.
There are certain shows where you try this and you only get, I guess you could do a percentage of let's say I think there were 300 people there last night. We got 30 new people to check out the Facebook page. That either way, when you're doing it right,
Yeah. I really believe that, whether you're playing at a bar or restaurant or, whatever, opening for national acts and stuff, I always want to leave every show with at least one
real fan, like someone who's really going to follow you and who's really going to, jump in your fan club and maybe like request you at venues or radio stations, one true fan. And, so there are all these little tips and tricks and that you learn throughout the years of doing it. And now I always, from the stage, whether it's a bar stool or a big stage, I'm always, ask people between songs like, hey, this is our Instagram handle, this is my Facebook handle. Mm-hmm. Like us, send me a message. I'll send you a free song. And mm-hmm. I've done that at huge shows, and I spend the next day and the day after that sending people a free MP3.
Yeah,
it's totally worth it, man. Like, if you go and play a big show and you're in front of 5,000 people, and then you can finish that show and have 50 real fans that are going to mm-hmm. follow you for the rest of your life because they had a little interaction with you. It's a genius business idea when you think
sure.
about it, because those people, and even if it's one person that's going to follow you for the rest of your career when you're doing music and help your career move along, it's totally worth it to take 2 seconds mm-hmm. to be like, hey, get us on Facebook, I'll send you a free song.
And people appreciate that, regardless of what level you're at, if you have a real interaction with them and express a real interest to again, remember their name, reach out to them on Facebook, check in with them every once in a while. They value that so much more than every band that goes through and say, hey, man, and they don't see a value in remembering that person's name or kind of learning a little bit about them. And we did a festival in Pensacola a while back, and there was somebody there that was, put on page, this is my favorite band that comes through here. And she's also a photographer. And then she said, hey, I'm going to send you all these pictures. We got a ton of professional pictures from this one person that, I had an interaction with one of the shows who played there along the way.
Yep.
And she reached out to me and actually responded to it. And more than just, hey, check out the fan page,
Yep. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people, a lot of musicians, artists that are still trying to play the, I'm an interesting, brooding rock star, and, I want everyone to be interested in me, and that shit doesn't work.
It doesn't work, especially now.
Yes.
It does not work anymore, if it ever did.
Right.
And that's why, a lot of those interactions, people walk away saying, that guy's a jerk. Well, he's not, but if you can, even in those situations where you're tired and we're out from the road and you're thinking about sound check and you're thinking about, oh crap, I don't have extra strings for, what if I break all that stuff.
Use my capo.
Yeah. So like, if you can still manage to make people feel valued with all that other stuff going on, you're doing better than most of the bands out there.
Well, and I would say that's half your job. If you want to be successful, if you want to be successful in the long term, everybody listening and watching, that's more than half your job. Because, like I said, those are the people that are going to be there for your career. I mean, it's your music. It's your whole, it should be a big portion of your whole being and your whole life. So these people that, if you make a connection with them, mm-hmm. they are going to support you. I mean, what other career do you have that? If you talk to somebody for 30 seconds and ask them about their life,
and then they're gonna, yours for
they're going to be like, I don't know. I was a personal trainer for years. I couldn't do that as a personal trainer. Talk to somebody for 30 seconds and then they're like following me and buying tickets to my shows or my personal training sessions. I don't know. Like, it's a magical thing if you do it and if you use it and if you're genuine about it.
So I think managing overhead is also something that's very important. That, I see these bands that get out and they say, well, we got to act the part. We're playing this big show. We need a tour bus from Nashville.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't.
Can I tell you, I know a few people, and I'm sure that you might know a few people too, that literally have a tour bus and they tour at like tiki bars. Something's not adding up.
I think if those bands could spend, if they could save what they spend in 2 weekends taking that bus out, they could do so much with their, to help them along with promo stuff and with recording budgets. But these guys get out there and we always did van and trailer. Every once in a while we got a bus, and it was usually because somebody else arranged it and they wanted it. But that was the way that I was able to do better than a lot of bands out there, was that, I managed my overhead.
Yeah.
And I was playing a lot of venues where I had to bring my own PA, and, I was okay with that. But I learned how to be a sound guy from stage without bringing out, an extra sound man.
That's a huge savings.
So count on, if you're taking a tour bus out, $1,500 per day. So if you're paying for driver, even if he's not charging you overages, which is double over a certain amount of hours, if you're paying $1,000, $1,500 for production, and if you're paying $1,500 per day for the bus, it's funny. Your musicians generally are not willing to take less because you're going out on a bus. It's like you have these fixed costs, and that's another thing with paying for musicians. There's a certain sweet spot, and it's often not that much more to where you can get the guys that you want.
Yeah.
So it's different for everybody, but the guys that I eventually was able to hone in on and have be a part of what I was doing and make my life so much easier, because they're good guys and they were professional and they did a good job and worked hard and took initiative. That definitely made my life easier to say, okay, since I'm saving by taking my own van out that I'm not renting, I'm doing my own production, I'm able to pay my guys a little bit more, and they're happy with it. And my saw the Oak Ridge Boys this weekend, and their drummer used to tour with me and do all this college stuff, and it was really cool. He was talking to my dad, and he said, Chris was one of the good guys to work for, and that to me meant so much.
Yeah.
Because that's always been my goal, to not lead by people fearing me or afraid that they're going to get beat up if they don't do their job. The guys that say, you know what, I could do the bare minimum, but Chris is juggling a lot by doing all this on his own out on the road. Maybe I'll take an extra shift driving. Maybe I'll help. With setting up the gear more than just the bare minimum. All these little things make guys that are doing it without a record label, without a sound company, it all makes it easier.
Yeah.
And that group of people that are the ones that you want to work with, they make your job so much easier.
Absolutely. Amen. And on that subject, I want to give a shout out to Nelson and Jay, my drummer and my guitar player, who helped drive on the last run. So, yeah, man, when you get these guys, like, there's the flip side to, like, the people that basically ruin your shows or ruin your connections for more gigs, and then. But when you get the guys that like really get it, like, I'm very happy with the guys that I have now, and they really get it, and they're there to like contribute to what you're doing. Those guys are just golden, and then that's what makes it fun. I always tell people, like, and the more work you put in beforehand, and the more work they put in beforehand, then all the shows are fun, because everybody knows what they're doing, and then when you finally get that that lineup that everybody is kind of there to pitch in instead of to try to detract from the situation, then it's a beautiful feeling. So shout out to all the great hardworking musicians and sidemen out there
that actually care about it.
Yeah.
And a good indicator of that, if you have the right group, is how you feel on Monday.
Yeah.
When you get back, you're tired. You haven't really slept in 48 hours. You put 1,500 miles on the van. When you're out with the wrong guys, you're miserable on Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday.
Yep.
But if it's the right guys, you can't wait to get back out on the road.
Exactly. So perfect way we'll wrap it up. Let's let everybody know where they can find you and all your handles and links.
Sure. So Instagram, it's Chris Winward. Website is chriswinward.com. I've got a bunch of music on Reverb Nation that's got downloads, and YouTube, Chris Winward Band.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, for being on here. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Always a pleasure talking.
You bet. I want to remind everyone to subscribe to whatever it is you're listening to or watching, whether it's the podcast or the YouTube channel, and go get your free guide on how to book gigs by me at howtobookgigs.com. Chris Winward, everybody.
Thanks, Tim.